Shalom Aleichem. Today we want to learn if one is allowed to make coffee on Shabbat Kodesh using these paper filters, putting them on top of a cup, holding the filter on top of the cup, putting the coffee beans inside, or the ground coffee actually, putting it inside and spilling hot water while holding it. Today they also have different plastics that you put on top that's made to fit on top of the cup nicely. Can you do that on Shabbat Kodesh? The answer is yes. And what is the reason? Why is it not borer, separating? The halacha says in Siman Shin Yutet, Ilchot borer, Sif Tet meshameret. Meshameret means a filter. Afilu tluya me'erev Shabbat, asur liten bashmarim. So you're not allowed to put in there the shmarim. You're not allowed to put in there the sediment, and then be borer that way, separate between the two. But the Shulchan Aruch adds, "Aval im natan bashmarim erev Shabbat." If you put the shmarim, you put the sediment inside from before Shabbat, mutar liten aleim mayim kedei sheyachzeru tzlulim lazuv. You're allowed to put water on top so it can spill, and although the water gets the taste of the sediment over there, we're talking about wine, but it's the same thing by coffee. It gets the taste of the coffee, that's permitted. So why is it that you're not allowed to put it? You're not allowed to use, if the shmarim were in there before, you're not allowed to put the shmarim there on Shabbat, because the shmarim themselves, if they were soaked, and once you put it, it already separates. But if you put the dry sediments, or in our case, dry coffee beans, and you spill water into it, and then it spills out with coffee flavor, that's permitted, as the Shulchan Aruch says afterwards. If you put the sediments before Shabbat, since they are, as we said, wet with the wine, soaked in wine, or if you put something dry, which you don't have a problem on Shabbat as well, mutar liten aleim mayim kedei sheyachzeru tzlulim lazuv. The Rishonim explain, the Meiri brings down like this, the Reed, also the Achronim, Nisim Karel, it's all explained that there's no borer, since the water itself has nothing that needs to be separated in it. There's no mixture in the water with something else, and therefore when you spill, although it gets mixed with the coffee and then it comes out, that's not borer. Borer means if you had something on the initial thing you're trying to separate, but not if it gets mixed after you spill it and comes out with a flavor. So again, the explanation we gave with the sediment that were wet inside the filter, that's not permitted to put on Shabbat, that's brought down in the Piskei Teshuvot, and it's milta de mistaba. It's something that makes sense, that once you put it there on Shabbat, it right away separates. You're separating the wine from the sediments themselves, the shmarim. So that it says over here that doing such a thing is permitted. Although the Gletal wonders how it's borer, how is it permitted, but he himself also says that since we see that it's psak in the Shulchan Aruch and nobody argues on it, it's simple l'halacha that it's permitted, one is permitted to do such a thing. But the question is, can you put the filter on Shabbat? Since we have another halacha in Siman Shin Tetvav in Shulchan Aruch that says meshameret shetolim ota latet bashmarim. In Seif Tet it says that putting the filter on top, lesanenanu mutchim pia lekol tzad, and you stretch the filter to the sides the way we did right now, chashuv asiyat ohel v'asur lintota. You're not allowed to put it because you're making a ohel, a tent. That's called the ohel, and you're not allowed to do such a thing on Shabbat. So it seems like it's asur. But the Mefarshim explain, you can see in the Magen Avraham, you can see in the Mishnah Berurah, the Kaf HaChaim, the Mefarshim explain that we're talking about very big barrels, and we're not talking about small household utensils, and therefore doing in a household utensil like this, a small cup, would be permitted according to this halacha, according to those mefarshim. Moreover, there's usually no tefach under. Tefach means the size of either 8 centimeters or 10 centimeters, machloket of Chaim Nayan and the Chazon Ish, usually from the place that it goes down the filter until the bottom of the cup. There's no shiur of tefach, especially if you're not using a very large cup. That's another hetel. Also, if you have a special keli, special thing that fits on top, since it's a special thing, so it doesn't look like you're using it for oil, that's another kula that the Kaf HaChaim brings down. But regardless, without all that, we already explained that the Achronim all agree that since you're doing it in a small utensil, there's no Isur. The only Isur was in a very big barrel or something like those things. What about the Isur of it's Ziluta the Shabbat? It's like Uvdin the Chol. It's something you do on a weekday, not on Shabbat. Maybe it should be Isur because of that. So the Mefarshim explain that actually this is a Rambam. A Rambam himself brings down in the Tshuvot a Rambam. And Chacham Ovadia quotes him when he speaks about going on a train on Shabbat or going on some kind of caravans on Shabbat. So over there he quotes that Rambam that's Nogia to us. The Rambam says that there's no Uvdin the Chol over here because anything that's done normally in a way that's not permitted to do on Shabbat, which is a violation of Shabbat, that's Asur because of Uvdin the Chol. If you do that in a permissible way. In other words, whatever normally is done in a not permissible way, and you want to do it now, changing a few things just to do it in a way that's permitted of Shabbat, that's a question already of Uvdin the Chol, of doing something that's weekday thing. But over here, this is something that a person can do on a weekday as well. It doesn't involve in any way violating the Shabbat. He says it is permitted.